Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Burnt Pancakes podcast. I'm your host, Katie Fensky, and this is the podcast where we embrace the messiness of motherhood, laugh through the chaos, and I remind moms that everyone burns their first pancake. Now, moms, we give so much to everyone else, so why not give ourselves the gift of better sleep? That's why I am obsessed with today's sponsor, Cozy Earth's bamboo sheets and pajamas. They are pure luxury. Their bamboo sheets are so comfortable, breathable, and cooling, keeping me comfy all night. Because waking up in sweaty, no thank you. And their pajamas, they are lightweight but cozy, making me feel like I am getting a spa day at home, even though I'm just surviving bedtime routines. Now, tall moms, listen up. Their pajamas come in tall sizes, and as someone who's 5'9", this is a game changer. Cozy Earth is all about turning your home into a haven of rest and relaxation. Their durable, pill free fabric and 100-night sleep trial prove they stand by their quality. So do something for you. Visit cozyearth.com and use code PANCAKES for up to 40% off sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. Sleep better with Cozy Earth. Today, I have an incredible guest for you. Emmy award-winning TV host, best-selling author, and mom, Tamron Hall. You know her from the Tamron Hall show, but today we're diving into her journey as a mom, her experience with IVF, and her brand new children's book, Harlem Honey, inspired by her son, Moses. Tamron shares the heartfelt story behind the book, the lessons she hopes kids and parents will take away from it, and how she juggles motherhood with her powerhouse career. Plus, we talk about embracing new experiences, mom guilt, and of course, the inevitable mom fails as we have. Trust me, you are going to love this conversation. Tamron, welcome to the podcast.
I am so happy to be here, Katie. Thank you for having me.
I love having you on. I'm excited to talk about motherhood, your new book,
Yes.
all the things. Well, let's start off with your son. You had your son later in life through IVF. Can you share a little bit about that journey and what advice you give to others who are going through that?
Oh, wow. I wish there was a one size fits all advice box for IVF, right? But what we know is that's not the case for me, Katie. I met my husband later in life, as some might say. I like to call it late to the party.
So many
Um,
of us. Yeah,
but
yeah.
listen, I was at a lot of parties and then I got to the very party I was supposed to be at. And we met early on. We immediately started to talk about our journey as parents, what that would look like. And we were open to any and all versions of this. I'm very lucky that my brother and his wife have four children. The oldest is 27 and he just got engaged, and the young
Oh.
16. And they have been like my children on Mother's Day. They always write me cards as their bonus mom aunt, and they've gone on every vacation with me. So this connection to children and family is so deeply buried in me. It's truly why I call my audience Tam Fam, because I don't take family lightly. And many of the people who are my closest friends right now are family, meaning I met them as friends and we became chosen family. So for me and my husband, we're looking at what options were available for us. And going back to the core of your question, it's so layered for me. I remember, Katie, I live in New York City, and I literally one day, once we were married and decided we were going to commit to this, I Googled, like best IVF clinic in New York.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. And
Yep.
I got what you'd expect. It's like sponsors and a bunch of other weird names. And then I see this particular clinic. I look it up, great reviews, according to what I saw online. And I went inside this office one day, like no makeup, I have a little hat on. I'm going to see what this is like. And I went in, and there were probably 160 people. And I mean, this is like high dollar, fancy schmancy,
Yeah.
not an inexpensive place. And there are people, no celebrities. I mean, these are just people
Mm.
looking for help. And I walked in, I got off the elevator, and I just started to cry. And it felt and looked like the last station on the Hope train. And it was so
Yeah.
heartbreaking for me. And it was so sad because we were all hoping for the same thing. And different races, different ages, some people alone, some people spouse, just you never. I didn't know the individual stories, but I knew we were all in that
Yep.
room hoping for this outcome.
Mm.
And it was such a big moment for me. And I left immediately without even seeing the doctor. And I had like, they'd arranged by then for me to go in the back and I left. I just thought, I don't want to go through this. This will lead nowhere. I truly thought that. And what sustained me and what kept me going was the transparency that you offer, that I hope that I offer. I started talking to other women.
Right.
I started talking to other people. I got other names. Got into other conversations, and this hope started to become bigger, and it became real. I started going to acupuncture. I looked at
Hmm.
traditional and non-traditional, and I also quickly discovered that there are a lot of people going through this who are not talking about it. So
Yeah.
for me, my advice is feel safe around those you are comfortable with, and you will be surprised how many have not told you what
Yep.
they're going through. Take in advice. I shared with Savannah Guthrie. She's the person who eventually gave me the doctor that I ended up using, right? Listen to your body and understand that you're on this journey. But more than that, you aren't you're not a failure if this doesn't happen.
Hmm.
That's not me trying to like pat you on the back. And that's me telling you I've done the work to accept that I was not a failure. My body was not failing me if this
Yeah.
didn't happen. And so many people, one of my first guests was on my pilot of my show, was Gabrielle Union. And she had her daughter, she was about to have her daughter, I guess. And it was just on, and I said, would you be okay if this didn't happen? And she said, I'm not ready to answer that question.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh gosh. And so that's what I mean by the journey, the medicine, traditional and non-traditional, all those things matter. But what matters most is you understanding that you are not a failure if this doesn't happen.
Right. Right. I bet that's something so many women struggle with because
Yeah,
it is way more common than is talked about.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is. And the joy though on the other side of when you
Mm.
get the call, right? And for me, it happened on the day that we shot the pilot of the show.
Oh
So
gosh.
I know it's crazy. I was gone and we'd gone through multiple rounds of IVF. I was on tour, basically starting to promote the show. And it was like a year and a half of like really, truly,
Crazy
we
busy.
jokingly say my child has many fathers because my friends were giving me like injections because I can't give myself injections.
Hmm.
I couldn't work my way up to God bless those who can. I couldn't. So my hairstylist, Johnny, we were leaving an interview with Cher in the back of an Uber in Vegas. And I'm
Oh
like, you
my
give me my shot.
gosh.
Like, what? The Uber guy, I'm like, because you have to do it on a certain time. And
Uh-huh. Yep.
um, when I was in, I think it was in Dallas, and my mom was not in Texas at the time. She was traveling. I called a dear friend. I said, "You got to meet me at the hotel. I land at 10 o'clock. You got to give me the shot. I can't do it." So, and then finally, just out of sheer desperation, once I was in Peoria, Illinois, and I'd given a speech. I'm in the bathroom, and it was a small, small airport. So there's only like one bathroom, and I'm in there and I'm lining up my injection. And I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna come in here and arrest me and everything. I'm like, so
What is she
like,
doing?
they're like, and with all these valves and all this. Uh, that was the only time that I worked my way up to doing it because I
Oh
had
gosh.
nobody around. So, it's colorful journey. It's ones of highs and lows and emotions, but I think it is so critical wherever you are on this journey. If you're just thinking about it now, I have so many young women in my life who are in their 30s who are freezing their eggs. Know what the
Hmm.
process is, but surround yourself with people you feel safe to talk about this journey with.
Right.
Bottling it up has an impact on your body. And I think that's an important component of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. I remember talking to someone once who had gone through years of IVF. I asked her, I was like, do you look at your son now every single day as a blessing and just think like, and she's like, of course I do, but I'm also a mom. And there are days when he drives me crazy too. So it's like, I
Listen,
have that perspective of like, we tried so hard for you, but I'm also a mom and
still
this is
humans.
hard.
I have a picture of my son. right after blastocyst went in, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
and it's framed and it says love at first sight. And that's a unique journey for parents who go through IVF that we actually get to see, you know,
Yes.
our children at this earliest formation of cells coming together that eventually leads to life. And so it is funny, but I'll tell you, my husband, all of the needles that I used, my husband,
Hmm.
away. I'm ready to throw them away. My son is about to be 6, and I think
Oh,
it's kind of gross. And my husband's like, no, we're keeping them. So we've moved twice and we
wow.
carried them around. I showed them once on the show. We did a 1 hour special on IVF, and we talk a lot about
Hmm.
fertility and the journeys. We just did something I'd never done before in the 30 years I've been a journalist. It was always a goal. We actually took people through what it's like to really freeze your eggs because people casually say that. Sorry, I live in New York. There's someone's alarm that's gone off. I'm in the heart of
We're
um,
good. We're good.
no, but we had a beautiful young woman, a guest on our show, talked about the whole process, and people don't realize that freezing your eggs is IVF. You're just not the last stage of it.
Right. And that's a
And
lot on your body. That's a lot on your
lot on
emotion.
your body, a lot on your emotions. So many women who are not in relationships at that time but want children go through
Mhm.
that process. And so that means you're alone. You're doing the shots yourself and you're on this emotional roller coaster. And I do feel that it is fantastic. And so many companies now are covering it and insurance and all these great opportunities. But you know, being realistic of what that is like. Some people do it, no problem. They go and work. Others need that extra support. But she really took people through the process on my show. And so many folks who hear the phrase freezing your eggs
Right.
suddenly were like, wait, what? That's what it is? Okay,
Right.
I understand. It's not scary, but giving a true look at IVF, egg freezing, sperm testing. We'll talk
Hmm.
a lot about that. Like, you know, many cases it is the man who should go in first to be tested if
Right.
they are
That's
fertility.
probably the easiest thing to check, right? Isn't it a lot
It,
easier?
well, you know, emotionally, a lot of guys don't want to go through it.
True.
No,
Yep.
I don't want to, you know, I mean, I have had two incredible people, one of which is my husband, tell me that, you know, they go up to the room and they're like, hey,
Awkward.
you know, but you know, it's hard to get guys to talk about that amongst guys,
Oh,
but
for
uh,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all of that is a part of it. All of it is part of
Yeah.
it. But I think, you know, again, being a mom is a blessing, and having my son, truly, when I say this kid saved my life, what I mean by that is that it gave me perspective. My mother says to me often, she just turned 75. She says, I'm so happy you're a mom now. It gives you a chance to think about
Mm.
things and focus on other things. But yeah, like anyone else, this morning I was on a Zoom call with my producers and he reached over and hung it up and thought it was hilarious. I'm like, you need to get out. It's been 2 weeks of spring breaks, and that's 2 weeks
Oh,
to
goodness. Mine's coming up, and I'm like, oh.
no, I've got to, I'm talking to you because he's at swim. You know, I love the convenience of being able to communicate like this at home and not being,
Hmm.
this is my home. That is actually my kids' book. This is my reading room.
You just
But
move the shoes out of the background. We're
I have a sneaker that ended up in my reading room that I don't know how, and it smells because he's now 6 and it's getting all
oh,
sweaty.
just wait. Just wait.
Uh,
Boys are stinky.
this for smell-o-vision right now, you'd be on the ground. Um, but yeah, no, it's great. But yeah, I even with our show and to your point about this is a blessing, but then you're a parent and a mom just like anybody else. With my show, I've been very intentional about how we talk about parenthood, how we handle the conversation, because like any relationship, it's complicated. And that's okay. That
Right.
doesn't mean it's not full of love and
Right.
joy and wins and all of that.
Yep. Yep. And on days where I feel like, oh God, I was the worst mom ever. Hey, I'm human. I'm human and they're human and they're driving me crazy.
But that's how, you know, that's what inspired my children's book. You know, really, my son is what we all call the pandemic baby, when I feel like all of us are pandemic babies, to be honest with you. But you know, he was just approaching his first year, and he'd just gone to his first like little baby gym class. He was in this little music class. We were on the
Yeah.
run singing and learning all these little things. And then boom, he was inside with just the two of us and his dad and my husband, and we're
Hmm.
took her home, and I'm taping the show. And honestly, Katie, I didn't even know kids got off formula after the first year. I don't know why I didn't know that. And I'm like, wait, what? They don't eat formula? And I'm trying to, you know, we're in New York City. I'm trying to order milk and get milk, and everything is
Oh
shut down. And
gosh.
I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I've pureed my last vegetable that I had before the grocery
Yes.
store.
It was
wild.
crazy.
It was
Hmm.
wild. And then we're inside, and but even in that moment or those moments, many, many moments, I was able to see things that I didn't see before. My son got his first tooth. I was doing the Oscars red carpet. And my mom was babysitting, and she sends a picture. She's like, "Look," and I'm like, "Really? Your tooth waited for me to leave to come out?"
Right. It
Now
always does.
it does, right? But now I was in the home and first steps and all of these things that I likely would not have seen. I
Right.
had the chance to see the side.
Right.
Going back to the it's complicated part of this, though, when everything reopened, my son didn't attend his first birthday party until he was 2. And we walked into the birthday party, and this kid who was super confident at home, super exploratory at home, I like to call it cocky swagger in the home, hiding behind me at this birthday party. And I'm going like, dude, who are you? And I remember touching his hand. His little hand was sweating, and they were doing the freeze dance, and he didn't. And this was the thing, we did all of this at home. He did not want to do at the birthday party. So I felt, to your point, I was like, I'm a horrible mom. My kid is the only kid who is not over there dancing. And I felt like everyone was looking at me, and I was getting like panicky, and I just thought, oh my gosh, what is going on? Oh boy. And then we went home, and he was like talking about the party. And I thought, wait a minute. So he's present, he's
Mhm.
aware, he wants in, but he doesn't know how to get in there.
Mhm.
And I started to really, up at night, reading every article. I have a dear friend, Tova Klein, who is a child development expert. I'm conferring with her. And we talked about, what does that look like? How do you inspire a child to face that fear, right? He doesn't have the language. He's only 2. I
Mhm.
don't want to get out there and go explore. We've learned that, for example, telling children, big boys don't cry or big girls don't cry is not productive. So, what is the productive way to have someone face their fear or change, right? This is a new environment, new people, new faces, new places, without saying, get out there, face. He's like 2 or 3. He's looking at me like, I don't even know what
Like,
that
no,
means.
mom,
Where,
I'm
right?
not doing
I'm
that.
good. Let's go back home, right? And so I started to use curiosity as a conversation starter. What's that there? Oh, what is that door? Oh, I wonder what and really using adventure as this secret weapon of building up his confidence. And that is the inspiration for my children's book. That's why I'm in, the book is Harlem Honey, The Adventures of a Curious Kid. And Harlem is any neighborhood, right? To me, we happened to live in Harlem at the time, but it's my hometown of Luling, Texas, population 2, me and my mom, and
Yeah.
it represents for me, Katie, the first exposure our children have is the neighborhood before they go to school, right? You think about it. It's like a lot
Mhm.
of times we go, oh, home to daycare, home to school, home to kindergarten, but the first step out of the home is your neighborhood, no matter where it is.
Yeah. I looked over your book and it reminds me a lot. I live in Southern California, cities everywhere, but we live near an old town. And I grew up here, and now my kids are growing up here, and I see them walking around the fountain that I used to walk around, or going to the same statue and playing on our walks. And it
Mhm.
is a big part of our life. And you're right. Like, this is what their first couple years were. We'd walk down to the circle, we'd go play at the fountain, and it's a big part of their world.
It helps build the confidence outside of the home, and it gives them a chance to articulate that curiosity. One of my fondest memories early on, after I went through the guilt of like, I've got the kid at the birthday party who doesn't want to,
Hmm.
I thought very clearly on how can I support him, right? How, because you want to save them, right? I wanted to save him.
Right.
Clear the lane and let my
Yes.
baby slide,
Mama
like,
bear is coming for you.
but I was like, okay, that doesn't serve him well. And we would walk around the neighborhoods. And one of the cutest things, we lived in a row of townhomes. And he very vividly one day discovered that every home had its own address. And with the townhomes, they're right on the front. And he's like, wait, they have an address? Wait. And then he discovered there was a rhythm to it, and every other letter. And it was
Mhm.
just like this great moment of something so simple that we take for granted every day. We write down our address, we put it in emails, we type it out when we're shopping on Amazon, it's right there, and every kid seeing something that we take for granted as this biggest moment of curiosity. So we lived in that moment. We came home and then we drew like a little townhouse village on this big white paper and we created addresses with it. So
So
for me,
cute.
it's two things. It's, reminding myself of patience, right? That's another gift that he's given me. It's easy to say, okay, we're in a hurry, we're in a hurry. Let me put your socks on so we can get out the door versus letting him put those
Yep.
socks and his motor skills and his fingers. And so
Yep.
the same with his mind, the same with curiosity, releasing the idea of parenting as answering his questions, instead replacing it with giving him time through adventure and curiosity to answer those questions himself. And that's a little bit of what this boy named Moses in my book is doing. He's finding the answers. Clearly, he's traveling and walking down the street with his buddy. That's not going to
Mhm.
happen. But it is a reminder of the time that we can afford them to find the answers themselves. And what we get in return is a reminder of what patience means.
Right, right. Well, I love the story, Harlem Honey. What inspired you? Like, when did you decide I want to write a children's book?
Honestly, much like my career and my whole life, to be honest, things I've done in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I said, like the IVF journey, I started talking with other people, and somebody said, "Oh, my son's shy, my daughter's shy." My mom said to me, "Wait a minute, you were shy," and I'm like, "Me?" And she's like, "No." And I started to think, "Oh gosh, I remember this moment where my mom put me in a little pageant, to get my confidence up, and I
Uh-huh.
froze on stage. I'm like, now meanwhile, I'm modeling up a storm at home in my little three-piece suit,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I get to this stage and I was quiet, and even now my friends describe me as a social loner. I was just at, I mean, this is going to sound like I'm name dropping here, but I was just at the opening night for Othello on Broadway. And there I am. And I was like, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm a fish out of water. First of all, how did I get this invitation? I never
Mm.
feel like I'm worthy to be in the room. And I'm certainly not, my husband's like, go say hi. Even my red carpet pictures, I'm like, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I said, I still get nervous. A lot of those folks I'd interviewed, and I get nervous, and I'm uncertain of myself. And this is a new, space, a new place. And now I've got to walk in and present myself with confidence when I did not feel very confident yesterday. And my son's book, or our book that was inspired by my son, kind of came to me through talking with especially other parents who want to have the conversation about fear, which is natural.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Everyone is afraid of something or a situation, and how do we support our children? And so I thought, okay, well, you know what? Let me reveal what we're going through. Just like with IVF, let me reveal a little bit about our lives, and in the process, we find common threads with other people.
Yeah. Love, love, love that. Do you feel like I'm jumping back a little bit to these pandemic babies because I have a 5-year-old. So mine was born 3 months before everything shut down. So we had a little normalcy and then it was like, you can't go anywhere. Do you feel like, because I know you mentioned your son would say, Mom, I want to go home. Do you feel like they experienced more of that fear of
I can only
going
speak.
out?
We, like of course I look at his peers and I say, gosh, that kid's running around and da da da,
Mhm.
But my kid was reading at 3. So I was like, I don't know what the balance is. I
There
guess
you
he's inside just reading away, I don't know. I don't know, but I'll tell you, and I'm happy you asked it. No one's ever asked me that, by the way. But
Mhm.
my son is definitely I want to go home. Or if you say to him, the other night, I said, you want to go get pizza out, or he said, let's order it home.
Just a
So maybe
homebody.
he's a homebody, or maybe
Yeah.
that is that comfort of home
Yeah.
implanted in them in a different way than before. Because truly, his world would have been traveling to Texas, traveling
Hmm.
to Chicago, Philadelphia, traveling with mom. I mean, my half of my dressing room was his nursery. So the world and life he was supposed to have in my mind, all
Right.
changed greatly. And to say that it hasn't had an impact, I think would be foolish of society to say that,
Mhm.
without getting into all of the other, politics of it, just the natural human nature of it, right? If you grew up in California and you ended up, instead, the journey had you growing up in Michigan, you'd be a different person, right?
Yeah.
Our environments change us. And so they were put in a different environment. So naturally, for me, I believe that has some impact, and it doesn't have to be negative,
No.
it has to be,
Yep.
but to not acknowledge the possibility of an imprint of change, I feel would be foolish. My son, with his shyness, we had right after, he fell in love with Kids Bop during that time we were all
Hmm.
whatnot. And we emerged, and it's with Kids Bop. And one day he said, I want to go see Kids Bop live. And now everything's up and running. This is like, I guess, last year, a year and a half ago. I said, okay, fine. We got tickets. We drove all the way out to like New Jersey somewhere. I'm missing the turnpike. And then we get there. Okay.
Never
And
thought that Kids Bop would be on my list of
my,
concerts to see in my
me
life.
either. In my life, I'm like, okay, with my clear bag, I'm like looking for a clear mom bag and all that other stuff. And so we get there and there, oh, whew, I mean, I can't even tell you how many people there were. But he's cool. He's super cool. Walks to the through and gives a ticket, or we scan the ticket, I should say, get through. We get closer and closer to his seat, and he's like, I want to go home. And I said, you want to go home? I said, but you've been wanting to come. He goes, no, I want to go. I want to go. And I said, okay, let's just take a beat, take a deep breath. What do you could, I just want to go home. I said, well, let's talk. And I kneeled down and I felt his hand, and his hand was like a little clammy. And I was like,
Mm.
listen, it's okay. And let's wait it out. Let's just, of course, part of me, I wanted to grab my kid and get in the car and go, let's go home, baby. We don't want a moment of discomfort
Yes.
first. But I
Yes.
knew that what was on the other side was fun, right? I knew if I could just get him.
Mhm.
So I waited. And again, that mom guilt of like, everyone sees me standing here and he's frozen and what's wrong? What's going on? That's Tamron Hall. And I was like, I can't care about that. I have to
Yep.
myself out of this. So eventually he inched closer and closer to his seat. Before I know it, he's doing his Elaine dance, as I call it, because he dances like Elaine from Seinfeld. And he's getting it or whatever. And I'm like, whew, we made it, right? And
Yes.
months later, Kids Bop Live, they had a show at the Beacon Theater and in New York City, and took him. And he's like the first in line. He took a couple of friends with him. He's dancing and they're having a good time. We were lucky enough to meet the Kids Bop kids at the end of the show. And he's like, great show, guys. I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh, look at you. And in
how
so
cute.
it's teaching them, right, that on the other side of fear, that's for all of us,
Hmm.
right? On the
Yeah.
other side of fear, launching a business, raising a family, whatever it is, starting a podcast when people are like,
Yes.
podcast, right? I'm sure there were many fearful days and nights of how do I get this going and what if it fails?
Mhm.
So whether you are 102 or just two, learning that on the other side of fear is often fun. And that's what the book is about. This change in this kid's life in the book. He's moved from Texas to Harlem. It sounds different. It smells different. It looks different. It is different. But learning that on the other side is fun. And that's what the book is really about.
Love that. And the message is home. And I
Mhm.
think, I know as a boy mom, you might feel this too. I always want my boys to know like they can come home wherever we are. It's not the house, it's just you can come home. And that's why I'm not too sad if they're homebodies. Like,
Me either. Yeah,
spread your wings, but this is always your home.
and I love that you said that because, so much of, when people see the book, they instantly obviously see two kids who have brown skin, and that was important. But it was more important that you saw a little boy on the cover of this book. When I was looking
Mhm.
for social emotional books, right, to kind of guide my son through being able to talk about his feelings, big feelings,
Yeah.
a lot of them were character driven. It was a dinosaur talking about his feelings or a car talking about his feelings,
Interesting.
but not a lot of physical forms of boys.
Yeah. Well, because
And
boys sometimes can't have feelings and they can't be emotional.
and
Hmm.
so for me, it was important just as we support children when it comes to tears, right? Writing without tears and all that.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with this and I wanted him to be precocious and I wanted him to be confident, but I also wanted
Hmm.
him to have this big feeling of fear. So when you see the illustrations, he's grimacing on the porch. That's okay too, but I
Yeah.
want children, both, you know, kids who identify as girls and identify to see this little boy, a confident little boy, find himself in a situation where he was not as confident. And that was important to me because I, I feel that I've greatly benefited from the empowering messages that I can do anything. I told someone, my big moment was one day we were talking about raising girls, and somebody said, yes, raise some little badasses. And I was like, yes. If you said that same sentence with for a boy, that takes on a whole different meaning.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so, why can't we do both? Why can't we have empowered girls and empowered boys, and neither of it be toxic
Hmm.
or putting them in a box? But I want my son to benefit from having a mom who feels empowered most of the time, not all the time. It's a journey, but you know, also recognizing to the world that boys aren't scary, that boys with confidence aren't scary, that boys can have alliances with girls like he does in this story, but not leaving our boys behind. And in a million years, I never expected that was going to be a part of this journey. I just never, because listen, I'm on the field now, and I'm on the field of the team that happens to have this little boy. And there are things I never, ever thought about. My nephew, as I said, is 27, wonderful kid, was a star football player, and I wasn't in the home every day to experience what that journey was like
Hmm.
for this young man. But I know he's now engaged to this beautiful Southern California girl,
Oh,
and they're getting married. But I don't want the world to see him as scary. I don't want people to see Moses as scary, or any boy.
right.
We're seeing statistically that 1 million fewer boys are graduating from high school. The workplace is greatly changed, and so many boys are feeling left out of the conversation. And if I can be a part of, through my platform, through this children's book, through being an empowered woman, say we can do both, or let's try, because we want women to feel that they deserve to be in the room, that we should be treated equally, all of those things. I
Yeah.
benefited from those things.
Yeah.
But on this funny enough as life is journey, I ended up with this kid who is a boy, and I don't want him not to be able to be afforded grace. I don't want him to feel like he can't crawl up in the bed and say, I want to be home.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want him to have those soft edges that he deserves to have.
Right. Raising boys, man. When I found out I was having a boy, uh, there was this overwhelming feeling of like, I need to raise this man for the world.
Yes.
Not this macho man. I need him to be respectful of women and confident and like it was I felt like a big responsibility that was just
I
handed to me.
agree. I agree. And I don't want the world to see his confidence as a negative either,
Hmm.
right? And the only way that happens is that women like ourselves speak up, and
Hmm.
we say we don't want, if he walks in the room assured of himself, that doesn't mean he is an a-hole.
Hmm.
It doesn't. It
Yeah.
means he had a mom that said you can be as confident about yourself as I was taught to be as a woman.
Yeah.
And it's a complicated conversation, because I think sometimes people receive it through some kind of gender battle rule thing. And that's not the case for me. As I said, I benefited from the local news anchor who my dad said, if you could be just like her if you get your grades up. I benefited from Linda Carter as Wonder Woman. I wanted a clear plane. I thought I could lasso any bad guy, writers that I read all my life. I've benefited from that, but I also benefited from having a dad who was a master sergeant in the military, but cooked the best pies and anything else and could take down anybody. But he was a
Mm,
great cook and a great baker. We
right.
have these layers.
It's so great to see that. Like, my husband is the cook of the house. He is a baker. He loves to make bread. I'm like, I love that my boys see that too, that you can be that. It's not like mom's doing the cooking only, I absolutely love that. Trying to give them a nice, well-rounded.
As best we can, right?
Mhm.
But it's better that we try than to lean back and allow the world. And I think most of the world does not want to do that. I
Right.
think, the empowering messages sent to me as a young girl, sent to you, and continue to be sent, even in the new Barbie film, everybody was loving that.
Mhm.
It wasn't meant to have a negative effect, but that doesn't mean it didn't. And what I mean by that is, sometimes when you over index and you want to get something right, it's easy for us all to turn our back on something else. And the stats show that not, it wasn't deliberate, but there has been a complicated conversation to come out of this. There's a school in Baltimore I just saw on NBC News, and they're looking at how they structure the day. It's an all boys school.
Okay.
They started with recess, versus
Makes
sitting down
sense.
immediately. Makes
Hmm.
sense. right? And they have really seen an improvement, they say, with boys enjoying school because they needed to get that energy out. And again, I know this
Mhm.
starts to get into like stereotypes of what one gender likes over another, and I understand that, but this is a school in Baltimore that saw a sea change from just from how they changed the curriculum of the day, not what
Yeah.
was being learned, but how
Mhm.
they were reaching the young men, young boys in that school.
Right. I have said for years that our traditional education system is not made for boys. And like, I loved school growing up, and I hear my three boys every single morning, like, I hate school. I don't want to go. I'm like, how do you hate it? I'm like, because they sit at a desk, and that's not what boys are by nature meant to do. And I
Listen,
wish I could change it like overnight and just be like, but it's
but
hard. It's
it's
a
a
system that's
conversation.
been set.
It is
Mm.
a system, but it's also one that's seeing change, and you're seeing
Hmm.
schools acknowledge it. When my son first started school, he was in a 3-year-old program, and their first thing was sit down for meeting. Like they would come in bounding from home. And my mom's an educator in Texas for many, many years. She's retired 30 years ago. She's like, wait a minute, they have a meeting. And then as soon as they walk in the door, and my first note was, he doesn't want to sit down for a meeting. And I was
Hmm.
free, and I'm 500, and I don't want to sit for a meeting.
Yes.
But I do also understand you got to learn to quiet your body. You have to learn to listen, all of those things. But yeah, I never expected it. I really didn't. And it's been fun to see. It's been fun to ask other boy moms, so to speak, about what they think. It's been fun to create this character that I hope through Harlem Honey and the Adventures of a Curious Kid that this little boy character can be amongst all of the great girl characters that we have to
Hmm.
help all of our children feel that having big feelings and big emotions are okay. And
Yeah.
we learn to deal with them on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap it up, here's some fun questions.
Okay, go.
If Moses could describe you in 3 words, what do you think he would say?
Amazing. No, I don't know. I would say, I think he would say, God, he would say, my mom, I'm going to be honest, he would say, my mom is busy. I
Uh,
struggle. He would, but I don't know if it's a negative.
right.
I have a story for everything, but as I said, I went to the opening for the thing last night, and my makeup artist did my makeup because it was all red carpet, and all that. And I just got off the plane this morning. The first thing he said to me, "Did you take all that makeup off?" Because he associates it with me going to work.
Going to work. Oh, wow.
He thinks makeup because I don't wear
Yeah.
makeup.
Yeah.
He associates it with me being out, so it's kind of a negative for him right now because
Right.
going somewhere with me. But I think he would say I'm busy, but I think he says I'm silly. He sometimes goes, Mom, you're so silly because we dance and we do dance parties.
Hmm.
Um, and he does associate me with adventure because we travel a lot together. So I don't know. I'm gonna
Those are
ask.
good. I love them. I love them. Did you feel like when you became a mom, like, because you were very successful, go, go, go business, doing your thing, was it hard once you became a mom to not feel like I can't give 100% here and be
Yeah,
100% at home? I struggled with that so
I
much. Like,
don't feel that I don't feel that way. I just feel I don't like leaving him. I
mhm.
mean, when I get in, I'm in. I mean, I have 180 people that work on the show. We're approaching our 1,000th show.
Wow.
It
Oh my
has
gosh.
not like that part. The thing that I struggle with, honestly, is I want to take him everywhere with me. We have a show coming up. We do this social media debate shows, and one
Mhm.
of the big debates is about people who don't let kids come to weddings. And I'm like,
That's a
how do you
great
expect
one.
Mhm. And I like, how do you expect kids to learn if we can't ever take them anywhere? And so I am like on my soapbox about wanting to take my kid everywhere. And I let my team, even when we're on Zoom, they're like, I apologize, my kid's in the background. I'm like, who cares? Let them say hi,
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that.
age has given me to. It's like I
Mhm.
am team. If I owned the company, remember back in you just have daycares at the workplace. I'm like,
Yeah.
care. I am like team, bring your kid everywhere. I was at dinner the other day, not far from my home. It was 5:30. It's a chic little place, but whatever. I had my kid with me. It was our date because I had to go out of town. And this couple kept eyeballing like he shouldn't be there. And I'm like, first of all, it's 5:30. Number
Wow.
one. Number
Yeah.
two, how do you expect a kid to learn how to behave? And he wasn't doing anything. It was just
Mhm.
kid in the room, right? I've been
Wow.
to places where I'm with my kid and the maitre d' might bring the person over and they see a kid, they don't want to sit next to the kid. And I'm like, what? I was
That's a sign that they don't have kids yet. Because before I had kids, I would see a mom in the grocery store. I'm like, man, that kid is so not well behaved. Now I'm like, payback because
yeah, no, it's so fun. And I
mine are
honestly,
crazy.
I, I personally, maybe I have a high tolerance I'm now 54. I rarely see kids just where I'm like, whoa. I mean, you see them wiggle or they might like be a little loud, but that's to me, that is, even when it's not my kid, such a pleasant reminder that life is real. I love to
Yeah.
see, I saw little boys the other day at the airport. They were playing soccer waiting on the flight and they weren't
Mhm.
bumping into anybody. They were, but that's why do adults get to be loud and disruptive?
Right.
We have that fun out.
Yeah.
Ooh, just I don't know. I don't know. I think it, and I was like this before I had a kid, and maybe my childhood is what is in front of mine because I had a very like take your shoes off, run through, have fun, be nice, say please,
Mhm.
yes, thank you, but be a kid.
Yeah. We need more of that. More
That's
let kids be kids. Yeah.
it's
Because they
kids.
are growing up so fast now. It just seems like they
I
are.
run into far more rude adults than I do kids.
Yeah. 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 It's true. All right. What's one piece of advice you would give to parents that maybe you completely ignored and you're glad you did?
That I completely ignored. Wait, I would
So,
give.
one piece of advice, like, okay, I remember when I had my first, I was like, I'm reading every baby book, I'm preparing, I'm, following the sleep schedule. By the time I had my third, I would tell people, get rid of every baby book. That's just going to stress you out.
Yeah.
Chill
I,
out. Like, it's okay.
I I would say don't Google at night.
That's a
Like,
great one. That's a
it's like
great,
don't Google milestones. Don't
that's a
Google
great
like
one.
it's like I'd be like, what are 3-year-olds supposed to be doing? And it's like the range, like some
Oh.
websites were literally like 3-year-olds should be able to just to say hi. Then there are others like they should be reading at an academic level. Oh my
Yes.
God. So I try to refrain. And I'll tell you, even my girlfriends, we laugh. Like there are nights I would stay up and Google and my husband would be sound asleep. And I'm like, why are you over there sleeping?
Yeah.
Don't you know what is happening in there?
Aren't you worried about?
Too worried about the milestones of 22 weeks, So I would say
So true.
resist the urge to go down the milestone Google thing.
Yes, agreed, agreed. I totally agree with that. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. You're doing a great job. You're a great mom, and I'm so excited for the release of your new book, Harlem Honey.
Thank you so much. I feel the same way. And congratulations on building this safe space for people to be able to talk and just have candid conversations. We don't have that enough, I
No.
feel, on my
Yeah.
soap.
Yeah.
It's a great pleasure to be able to do it.
Special thanks to Tamron for coming on the podcast. I absolutely love this conversation, hearing her insights about motherhood and IVF and the story behind her new book, Harlem Honey. Make sure to check the description below to find out where to get it. And like always, I want to remind you that everyone birds their first pancake, so just keep flipping.